Imagine trying to sell a premium, like $40 superfood smoothie, right? But every single time your customer takes a sip, their brain's evolutionary alarm bells just start screaming at them to spit it out.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a complete nightmare for any brand.
Right. Because that is essentially exactly what happens when you try to launch a nutritional product made of, well, cactus slime.
Cactus lung.
Yeah, you aren't just going up against a crowded wellness market, you know?
Yeah.
You are declaring war on thousands of years of human biological instinct.
It's honestly the ultimate test of marketing strategy. I mean, viscous, gooey textures, they trigger this deeply ingrained revulsion in humans.
Because it feels like rot, right?
Exactly. Historically, slimy plant matter signaled decay or pathogens to our early ancestors. So overcoming that isn't just about tweaking a logo or choosing a nice font. It requires a fundamental rewiring of consumer perception.
And that rewiring is exactly what we are dissecting today. Welcome to the deep dive, everybody. We have a genuinely fascinating stack of sources to unpack for you today.
We really do. It's a great stack.
Yeah, so on one side, we have this trove of internal strategic marketing memos. They're from Dalchroma Digital Marketing, and they were hired to launch this highly controversial product for a brand called Hacienda El Maguey.
Which is such a wild case study.
It totally is. And to decode the actual mechanics behind these corporate memos, we're cross-referencing them with graduate-level university lecture materials, specifically a course called MAR 630, Creative Strategy and Branding, taught by Dr. Anthony Bullard.
Right, and the foundational premise of Dr. Bullard's lecture is that ideas are the true currency of the 21st century.
Yeah, which sounds a bit academic at first.
It does, but when you filter a real-world corporate crisis like trying to sell a gelatinous cactus product through the lens of this academic creative theory, you start to see the hidden scaffolding. You see how consumer desire is actually engineered.
Which brings us to our mission today. We are going to analyze exactly why the final ad campaign chosen for Hacienda El Maguey's Nopal, or cactus flower, was perfectly engineered to bypass that evolutionary gag reflex we talked about.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at how they tailored this highly specific message to resonate with one of the most hypercritical, difficult-to-please demographics on the planet. I'm talking about high-velocity South Florida wellness consumers.
Oh man, that demographic is a crucible for marketers. I mean, if you can sell a controversial ingredient in that specific region, you basically have created a blueprint for national success.
Totally. So let's lay out the product first, so you listening at home can picture what we're dealing with. Hacienda El Maguey is piloting this 500-gram bag of solar-dried nopal flower.
Nopal being cactus, just to clarify for everyone.
Yes, exactly, cactus. And the initial rollout targets Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. Now, on a purely nutritional spreadsheet, this stuff is an absolute miracle.
Oh, it's incredible on paper.
Yeah, it boasts 10 grams of natural fiber per serving. Plus, they use a very specific low-temperature solar drying process, and that preserves the active enzymes.
Right, so from a functional perspective, a dietitian would look at this and call it an absolute powerhouse.
But the memos immediately raise a massive red flag, and they actually officially title this the slime stigma.
The slime stigma. It sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It really does. But it's a real problem because mainstream consumers associate fresh cactus with mucilage.
Right.
It is that gelatinous, kind of stringy, viscous liquid you see when you, cut open an aloe vera leaf. Human biology naturally recoils from drinking something with the consistency of raw egg whites.
Yeah, nobody wants to drink raw egg whites. So the Dalchroma marketing team, they understood they were facing a dual front war here.
What was the first front?
Well, the first is the biological texture aversion we just mentioned. But the second front is the hyper-fragmented nature of that South Florida wellness audience.
Oh, right. The memos slice this target demographic into two distinct, almost opposing psychographic profiles.
Exactly. And navigating between them is so tricky.
Okay, let's look at those profiles. The first group they labeled the thinkers. I imagine these are the people, standing in the aisle at Whole Foods, just aggressively squinting at the fine print on a supplement bottle.
Yes, totally. They demand operational evidence. A thinker doesn't care about your pretty packaging. They want a physiological mechanism.
Right. They want the data.
Exactly. They want to know exactly how that low-temperature solar drying process mechanically preserves the 10 grams of fiber, and frankly, they want peer-reviewed validation.
Which brings us to the second group, right, the experiencers.
Right.
If the thinkers are the spreadsheet readers, the experiencers are the ones carrying a $15 green juice down the street in Wynwood like it's a designer handbag.
That is the perfect way to describe them.
They crave novel, aspirational superfoods, but they absolutely refuse to compromise on aesthetics.
Yeah, they want the social currency of being an early adopter of the next big superfood. But if the product doesn't look, feel, and taste like a premium luxury experience, they will instantly reject it.
So marketing to these two groups simultaneously has to be notoriously difficult.
Oh, it's a nightmare. If you lean too hard into the science for the thinkers, you alienate the experiencers because you end up looking like a clinical medication.
Like something you buy at a pharmacy.
Right. But if you lean too hard into the luxury aesthetic, the thinkers just dismiss you as snake oil.
And the memos note that both of these groups are currently suffering from a shared psychological condition. They call it optimization fatigue.
Optimization fatigue.
Yes. They are just completely burned out on clinical, synthetic, lab-created biohacks.
They're so exhausted by the constant pressure to optimize their biology, like it's, a piece of software.
So the marketers are standing at the bottom of a very steep mountain here. They have a biologically repulsive ingredient, an audience that demands both scientific rigor and aesthetic perfection, and a general consumer base that is just sick of being sold to.
It's a perfect storm.
It really is. The temptation here must be to just lie, right? To bury the word cactus in the ingredient list and slap a label on it that says, I don't know, desert matcha.
I mean, sure, that's tempting. But obscuring the truth is the hallmark of a weak strategy. If we bring in Dr. Buller's lecture materials, he references advertising pioneer James Webb Young. And Young developed a famous 5-step technique for producing ideas. The very first step is immersion.
Immersion. Okay, what does that actually look like in practice?
It means gathering deep, uncomfortable information. You have to research the problem until you hit the absolute bedrock of the issue.
Because you can't solve a problem if you are pretending it doesn't exist.
Exactly. The Dalchroma team had to immerse themselves in the uncomfortable reality of the slime. They realized during this immersion phase that consumers actually loved the nutritional profile of the cactus.
Okay, so the nutrition wasn't the issue.
Not at all. The barrier had nothing to do with the health benefits. It was entirely sensory. The texture was the villain, not the plant itself.
Which makes sense. I mean, selling a slimy superfood is like trying to sell a soggy potato chip.
A soggy potato chip, yeah.
It completely violates the expected sensory experience. How can any marketer even begin to overcome a biological aversion like that without just lying about the ingredient?
Well, knowing the slime is the ultimate villain, they move into brainstorming. And Dr. Buller's lecture spends a lot of time on this specific phase, focusing on the theory of turning negatives into positives.
Okay.
This is all about reframing a weakness so intensely that it actually becomes the reason to buy the product.
Oh, right. The lecture has that amazing historical example of this.
Yes, the Macy's one.
Yeah, a copywriter at Macy's was once tasked with selling a massive overstock of incredibly ugly neon orange luggage.
Which nobody wanted.
Right. So rather than trying to light it beautifully or pretend it was a hot new fashion trend, they embraced the sheer ugliness. They wrote a headline that said, "Does your luggage get lost at the airline terminals? We've got the perfect luggage for you."
It's so brilliant.
It is, because nobody else on the planet is picking up a glowing orange suitcase by mistake. That completely bypasses the aesthetic judgment and just sells pure utility.
Exactly. He also highlights a PETA animal cruelty campaign that utilized a technique called thinking in opposites.
Thinking in opposites. How did that work?
So instead of relying on the expected graphic imagery of abused animals, which, let's be honest, people often just look away from, they staged animals like high-fashion models in a sterile, glamorous photography studio.
Wow.
Yeah, by placing the grim reality of animal testing inside the visual language of a Vogue editorial, they created massive emotional shock value. The contrast forced the viewer to engage.
That is powerful. So applying that academic theory back to our cactus problem, we can see the Dalchroma team working through their options.
Right. They had a few different concepts.
Yeah, their first instinct, detailed in the memos, was an approach they called ancestral vitality. The proposed headline was 50 years of wellness, perfected for today.
Okay, and this concept leaned heavily into the brand's agricultural heritage, right? Highlighting their pioneer plantation established back in 1976.
Exactly. And from a traditional branding perspective, that is a very safe play, isn't it?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
It builds authenticity, it establishes a legacy, and it creates a sense of trust.
But based on everything we just discussed about immersion, it is a catastrophic failure.
Complete failure.
Nostalgia does not fix a gag reflex. I mean, you can tell me this cactus has been grown with love since 1976, but if I think it's going to turn my morning protein shake into a bowl of wallpaper paste, I am not putting it in my mouth.
You're just not. It completely ignores the sensory barrier. So recognizing that failure, the marketing team swung the pendulum to the absolute opposite extreme.
They did. They called their second attempt Radical Candor.
Radical candor.
Yeah, and the headline was aggressive. It was 100% cactus, 0% slime.
Wow, just putting it right out there.
Totally. The visual concept was this highly disruptive split-screen video. On the left side of the screen, you have a knife slicing into raw, gooey, stringy, fresh cactus just oozing everywhere.
Gross.
Yeah. But on the right side of the screen, you have a smooth, perfect, elegant pour of their fine culinary-grade powder blending seamlessly into a glass of water.
See, they're visually weaponizing the stigma. They take the thing you fear the most and vaporize it right in front of your eyes.
But hold on, let me challenge this. If the slime is the central, unavoidable issue we've been talking about, why not just blast the market with this radical candor concept? Like, it's the ultimate infomercial strategy, right? Here's the disgusting problem you hate, and here's the pristine scientific proof that we solved it. It is brutally honest. Why wasn't this the instant winner?
I get that. But this is where understanding the specific psychology of the South Florida consumer becomes absolutely critical. The radical candor concept is a massive victory for the thinkers.
Because they get the data.
Right. It gives them the operational evidence of the product's physical transformation, but it is a complete disaster for the experiencers.
Because it's too aggressive.
Because it strips away the premium lifestyle element.
Yeah.
By focusing so heavily on the gross problem and the clinical solution, it makes the Nopal flower look like an over-the-counter medication for irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see that.
Remember that optimization fatigue we talked about? The experiencers in Miami and Palm Beach are exhausted by clinical supplements pushing biohacks. They don't want a gritty, split-screen infomercial reminding them of their digestion. They want an elevated lifestyle aesthetic.
So leaning on legacy is too vague, and radical candor is way too medical. They hit a wall.
They did, and according to Dr. Buller's framework, this is the exact moment of friction required to reach the illumination stage.
The actual aha.
Moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They had to invent a hybrid solution that delivered the scientific proof demanded by the thinkers, but wrapped in the emotional comfort demanded by the experiencers.
Which brings us to the final, winning big idea. They called it the Hacienda Ritual.
A Hacienda Ritual.
Yeah. The core campaign message shifted entirely away from the cactus itself. The new proposition was, harness the power of the desert for your daily flow.
Okay, I like that.
And the subtext promised a simple daily desert ritual that delivers metabolic balance, vibrant, smooth, and science-backed. What is truly remarkable here is how deeply this taps into the specific geographic and psychological reality of the South Florida consumer. They completely stopped positioning the flower as a nutritional supplement. Instead, they positioned it as a morning anchor.
A morning anchor. So if you are listening to this on your commute, think about your own morning routine.
Right.
The memos paint a picture of a young professional living in Brickell or Coral Gables. Their environment is fast, loud, frantic, and incredibly chaotic.
Just a high-stress lifestyle.
Totally. So the campaign frames the very simple act of stirring this green powder into a glass of water as a moment of profound, sunlit calm. It is a structural anchor of internal control before they step out into the chaos of the city.
And the visual language of the campaign reinforces this perfectly. They use the vibrant green color of the flower and the story of the solar drying process, not as scientific data points, but as visual proof of a premium natural product.
Oh, okay, let me play the skeptic here for a second.
Sure for it.
Anchor your metabolic harmony and daily flow. I mean, those phrases border on generic wellness buzzwords, don't they?
They do sound a bit familiar.
Right. Dr. Bullard's lecture talks about Apple's Think Different campaign, where Apple brilliantly sold the concept of creative rebellion, but Apple was ultimately selling computers that backed up that rebellion. With this Hacienda ritual, are they just masking a slimy plant behind an expensive, moody vibe? Are they literally just selling a feeling because the physical product is too controversial?
That is a very fair critique.
Yeah.
But the vibe in this case is actually a highly calculated utility. It goes right back to treating the optimization fatigue.
Okay, how so?
These consumers are bombarded every single day with hardcore, hyper-masculine biohacking rhetoric. Podcasts telling them to optimize their sleep architecture and hack their gut microbiome.
Oh, so they don't want another bodily chore, they just want peace of mind.
Exactly. Yes. The brilliant psychological pivot of the Hacienda ritual is that it shifts the Nopal flower from being a medical fix you must choke down into a quiet, aspirational habit you get to participate in. It treats the consumer's anxiety, not just their digestion.
That is so smart.
It is, but, and this is why it really works, the underlying reality of the 10 grams of fiber and the fine mesh milling ensures that when the thinkers do look past the aesthetic, the hard science is there to validate their purchase.
It's a beautifully constructed idea, but, an idea in a corporate memo is basically useless if the execution is sloppy.
Oh, 100%.
So how does Dalchroma actually deliver this tranquil Hacienda ritual message while ensuring the consumer still explicitly understands that the product won't be slimy?
Well, the tactical execution is where this campaign moves from just good theory to great marketing. They instituted incredibly strict, non-negotiable creative rules for every single piece of content produced.
Rule number 1 in the memos: every single visual asset, whether it's a billboard or an Instagram reel, must show the product in active use.
Active use, right.
Someone has to be blending it, stirring it, or dusting it over a bowl. Static shots of the bag are totally banned. They have to physically demonstrate that it does not clump.
So they are basically forcing the sensory proof right into the lifestyle imagery.
Exactly. And that leads to rule number 2, which is honestly my absolute favorite detail in this entire deep dive. They mandate something called the proof cut.
Proof kit.
Yeah, in all paid social media and on the product landing pages, there must be a 3 to 8 second sensory proof cut embedded within the video. They describe it as a macro dissolve.
So it's like a hyper close-up shot of the fine powder melting instantly and perfectly into liquid.
Exactly. It's like putting a transparent glass case over a luxury car's engine. You still get the beautiful, sleek, aspirational exterior for the experiencers, but right in the middle of the commercial, the thinkers get to look through the glass and physically watch the pistons firing perfectly underneath.
That is a great analogy.
The lifestyle imagery doesn't overshadow the educational proof. It literally houses it.
And they also lock down the visual palette to support this. The campaign relies entirely on sage and desert greens, terracotta, and matte earth browns.
Giving it that natural feel.
Right. This subconsciously honors those 1976 agricultural roots without having to explicitly talk about it and bore the audience.
But even with the perfect video and the perfect color palette, they didn't trust the digital world alone, which I found fascinating.
No, they didn't.
Their real-world activation strategy is what actually seals the deal. They targeted low-commitment physical trials. They partnered with 6 premium cafes across Doral, Brickell, and Wynwood, offering the Nopal flower as a simple $1.50 add-on to any existing smoothie.
And this physical activation ties directly back to one of the most compelling case studies in Dr. Buller's lecture, the Burt's Bees Good campaign.
Oh, that case study is wild. I mean, how do you sell a smell on the internet?
It was a seemingly impossible challenge. Burt's Bees was trying to sell a new fragrance line to millennials entirely through Facebook, but obviously you cannot smell a screen.
Right.
So instead of just writing poetic descriptions of the scent, they engineered a neuro-linguistic bridge between the physical world and the digital world.
A neuro-linguistic bridge. How did they actually build that?
They mailed out millions of physical scratch-and-sniff inserts in magazines, and street teams handed out physical cards on college campuses.
Okay.
These cards had numbered scents that corresponded directly to visual cues popping up in a specific Facebook video. So you smell number 3 on the card in your hand while simultaneously watching the bright visual representation of number 3 on your screen.
Wow, so your brain links the olfactory response to the digital pixels.
Exactly. They created a tactile bridge, and it resulted in them beating their first-year sales goals by 37%.
Just because they didn't just talk about the sensory experience, they forced the consumer into a physical interaction with it.
Right. Both the Burt's Bees campaign and the Hacienda El Maguey strategy rely on this undeniable marketing law. When dealing with a massive sensory barrier, digital promises are simply not enough. You must engineer a low-risk physical experience.
I see the parallel, but let's look at the vulnerability of this Cactus campaign for a second.
Okay.
Say I am a consumer scrolling through my feed. I see the beautiful, cinematic, sunlit kitchen video. Maybe I look away for a second, my dog barks, and I completely miss that 3-second macro dissolve.
Right, the proof cut.
Yeah. So I get the vibe, but I miss the proof. Am I really going to go to Shopify and pay $40 for a bag of cactus powder if I still have that lingering evolutionary suspicion that it might be slimy?
See, that is exactly why the $1.50 cafe add-on is the linchpin of the entire multi-million-dollar strategy.
Oh, okay.
Social media is designed to plant the desire for the morning anchor. It builds the aspirational world. But physically walking into a Wynwood cafe and tasting a perfectly smooth, non-clumping smoothie, that is the final sensory validation.
So it completely de-risks the transaction for them.
Yes, exactly. For $1.50, the consumer proves the digital claim in the physical world. The moment that texture barrier is broken in their own mouth, the evolutionary alarm bells turn off.
The lizard brain goes quiet.
Right. Once the biological fear is gone, converting them from a one-time cafe buyer into a $40 30-day premium subscriber on Shopify becomes a completely frictionless process.
Wow. So bringing all these threads together, the journey we just mapped out is honestly incredible. We started with a highly functional plant that was burdened by a deeply stigmatized, biologically repulsive flaw.
That's slime.
The slime, yeah. And we watched a marketing team navigate away from lazy nostalgia and away from overly clinical infomercial tactics.
They arrived at a strategy that merged undeniable sensory proof with a calming lifestyle narrative. And it resonated so powerfully in South Florida because it respected the complexity of that specific consumer.
It really did.
It gave the thinkers the hardcore physical proof they demanded while providing the experiencers with an emotionally grounding premium ritual to combat the chaos of their daily lives.
It basically proves that the most successful marketing doesn't just sell a list of ingredients. It sells a psychological solution. In this case, it cured their optimization fatigue by offering peace of mind in a glass.
Totally. And I think there is a profound final thought to take away from this entire case study.
What's that?
The Nopal flower campaign ultimately succeeded because the marketers stopped hiding from the product's controversial nature. Instead, they visually weaponized the product's transformation. They took the flaw, the viscous plant, and proudly showcased its evolution into a smooth, elegant powder.
So if you are looking at your own business or your own creative projects or even just your daily routines, it really makes you wonder, what other perceived flaws or biological stigmas are we currently hiding from?
Right.
Because with the right immersion and the right creative reframe, those massive weaknesses might actually be your greatest undiscovered marketing opportunities.
When you stop fighting the flaw, you can finally start using it.
And that is a perspective shift worth taking with you. Keep questioning the packaging and keep digging beneath the surface. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.